Let's come to sit in a comfortable position. We always have the option to sit in a chair instead of on the floor. I have a little cushion for comfort. I find it much better. And as long as we can have a tall spine, we're in good shape. If we need to do a little something to get the kinks out before we settle into stillness, feel free to do so. And if we remember our 3-mountain format, we always start with 3 to 5 minutes, turning our attention inward. So let's go ahead and go there now. Eyes can be closed or just quiet, as we often say. So maybe taking our eyes down towards the mat. Or if you're lucky enough to sit by a window, we could be looking out the window. But if we're okay closing our eyes this morning, let's go ahead and close our eyes, turning our attention inward. Noticing what's going on today in our bodies and minds. And let's invite ourselves to the practice of mindful awareness by reminding ourselves that we are paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. So as thoughts come into our awareness, we can observe them, just noticing them, maybe approaching them with curiosity or kindness, and then releasing each thought as well. So thoughts bubble up in the mind, we notice, and we release. And in a way, our opening meditation can be thought of like this: aware and release. Notice a thought and let the thought go. We can bring our awareness towards our breathing, allowing the next few breaths to be deeper, fuller, more energizing, or longer. And before we start taking it too seriously, option here to release some tension from the face, maybe taking a deep breath in and then blowing through the lips to let it go, or a gentle shake of the head or roll of the shoulders. Option to set an intention for our practice here today, keeping in mind our theme of non-judgmental awareness, practicing kindness, nurturing, and encouragement for ourselves. Let's go ahead and open our eyes. And we will begin with our alternate nostril breathing. So if you are familiar with alternate nostril breathing, you practice a lot, feel free to dive right in. Otherwise, I will lead us through in small steps. Here is the easiest way for our coordination. We take one finger from each hand, and we're going to block one nostril. Take a breath in. We're going to switch which side we're blocking and breathe out. Stay on this side. Take a breath in. Switch and breathe out. So I think of it this way: exhale, inhale, switch. Exhale, inhale, switch. Feel free to keep going with this pattern. Exhale, inhale, switch. We could also take our Yogi Mudra with either thumb and first finger, or some people like the middle two fingers to put on the third eye, but then our thumb and our pinky do the work blocking. Okay, so some people just do it with the thumb and the pinky. Same idea. Exhale, inhale, switch. Exhale, inhale, switch. Let's go at our own perfect pace. If we are congested, we could always do it just as a visualization. And if our noses get a little runny, that's okay. We can take a pause, grab a tissue. But this is balancing our masculine and feminine energies, balancing the left side and the right side of the body. And believe it or not, there are actually a lot of health benefits to having good access to both nostrils, and also helping our bodies cycle through from right to left throughout the day. Let's do a couple more rounds here. Noticing which nostril appears more open or dominant. And since it's morning, we may be noticing that the right nostril is more open. Ooh. Okay, we can let that go. Whenever you're ready, maybe we'll notice at the end of class, a different nostril is more dominant, maybe not. And let's get into our movement here. So I will give us movements, but we'll keep our minds focused as we go. Let's start with something familiar, and we'll do a lot of familiar movements. So we'll inhale up, circle sweeping arms to sky, and exhaling hands through center. So we'll do familiar movements so that instead of it feeling like we're learning new movements, we can let our mind and body work together to stay focused in our concentration. So we might still be saying to ourselves, inhale and exhale, to keep our minds focused. So we have this union of body, mind, breath, and thoughts. Let's do two more. Pausing for a moment here. Let's see if we can notice the beating of our own hearts. So some of us may be very aware of that internal heartbeat, and some of us not so much, but that's okay. Whatever we're noticing, we're noticing. And if you're not aware of anything, then just noticing that we're not aware of anything. And that's our focus of concentration. Okay, we can release our hands. And let's keep going with this same theme. Simple movements that I hope we're comfortable with so we can match breath, body, mind movement together. Lateral flexion. Inhaling, sweeping one arm up and overhead, lengthening through the side of the body. And then exhaling, returning back through center. That's our flow, alternating side to side. Inhaling, we're sweeping up. And exhaling, drawing back through center. So we could be thinking about our muscular movement. We could be thinking about our grocery list or what we're going to have for lunch. But let's do our best to pay attention on purpose in the present moment. One of the best ways to do that is actually through our five senses, tuning into feeling here, noticing whatever is touching the mat. Keeping our awareness on that grounded sensation, noticing whatever's touching the mat. Let's take it once more each way in our own perfect pace. Drawing back through center, we'll meet together. Let's release those shoulders. Up, down, and back. Let's take it for some rotation. So we'll start with hands at heart center, and then I'll give us some different options. So we probably know this one already. Like a straw, we want to lengthen out first, and then exhaling, we're twisting towards the right, bringing ourselves out, inhaling back through center, and then twisting the opposite direction. Maybe this time through, we're keeping our thoughts focused on our breath. So we can take our hands to the sides of our ribs so we can feel our ribs expanding front, side, and back, inhaling center, and exhaling, then feeling our bellies draw in as we rotate to the side. Inhaling center, and exhale to rotate. And we may be familiar with an Ujjayi breath. That would be a nice addition here to keep our thoughts focused on our breathing. We'll do a couple more. If anybody really feels the urge to incorporate our movements, we can. But remembering, we are letting go of the need for competition, judgment, or expectation. So no need to do the arm movements because we think we have to. But with open curiosity, let's see if we can draw them in. Finishing up our last rotation, coming back through center. And making our way to child's pose. So our hands are towards the top of the mat, resting, hips down towards our heels. And child's pose is always our pose for a pensive pause. We can close our eyes. Sometimes it feels like sensory reduction because we're down here. We can focus inward instead of on the rest of the world, sending our attention inside. Notice what kind of thoughts are bubbling up at this moment. Bringing movement back into our practice, coming onto all fours. We're spreading our fingers wide, and let's treat it like an upper body exercise so we're not just dumping or flopping into the mat. Pressing down through each knuckle joint and each fingerprint and thumbprint so that we are strong in the upper body. That feels beneficial to press down through the tops of the feet. And let's flow through cat and cow the same way we've been flowing, keeping our thoughts focused on breath and movement. We can inhale to prepare. As we exhale, we are pressing the earth away, drawing our backs upward to the sky. And as we inhale, we're drawing our hearts forward, lengthening our hamstrings. Working on a theme, finding our own perfect pace, matching breath to movement. Maybe getting curious, how is my breath moving today? Does it feel restricted or free-flowing, maybe a little shaky or smooth? And with open curiosity, asking ourselves, how is my spine moving today? Are there some ways that we'd like to move that aren't quite so robotic? So maybe we're taking our cow pose and our weight's more forward on our hands, or in our cat pose, our weight's more back on our knees. Do we feel some sticky spots? And can we give ourselves permission and free license to move into those sticky spots, to open them up with kindness instead of beating ourselves over the head and thinking, oh no, I'm so tight. Can we move into it, seeing this tension as an invitation? And let's start to finish up whatever you are working on, feeling either creative or pretty standard. And then yogi's choice, we're resting back in downward dog or child's pose.
If we're in child's pose, we could be shaking our hips off to side, turning the head side to side. And if we're in downward facing dog, spreading our fingers wide, pedaling out our heels. Maybe we're wagging our tails. And we will have the option for sun salutations. So let's warm up our half series. We'll come onto our knees. And this may be our half series for today. So let's listen into our core muscles, our backs, our wrists, our elbows, and see what's going on here in this position. So maybe our half series is just a half series prep, as we've maybe done before. We'll do this in our level 1, inhaling back into child's. Exhaling forward into a kneeling plank. And that's our flow. Inhaling back into child's. Exhaling, drawing our bellies in. Coming forward into kneeling plank. So this may be it for us today, right? We signed up for mindfulness and meditation, and I told us it would be a pretty easygoing day. So this may be it. Long, strong backs. I think it's pretty good preparation for meditation to be working on our core so we can sit up tall. But if we're feeling good, like it would be beneficial to the upper body, of course, we can add our crocodile here, maybe only dropping 2 centimeters, pressing back up, and then repeating. So that means we're inhaling forward into our kneeling plank, exhaling through our crocodile prep, and then back into child's. So I'll give us a minute here to work it out for yourselves. I'll give us some time in silence so that we can match breath to movement and find this in our own bodies, right? We know every day we're different. Today we're different than yesterday, different than we'll be tomorrow. We will start to make our way to standing. So feel free to pause here in child's pose or downward facing dog, collecting our thoughts again. Maybe noticing how it feels to be left in quiet, not receiving any instructions while we're moving, listening inward to receive instructions from our inner teacher instead. And then we're walking hands and feet towards one another, coming into forward fold. We can do a deep bend in our knees here, right? Resting belly on thighs, touching our body with our body. Thigh and belly make contact here. Lengthening out our spines. Let's reverse our swan dive, coming up to standing. And again, we have a moment to reset our bodies here. Inhaling, sweeping up, and exhaling, drawing hands down to heart center. Okay, last one here. Inhaling, arms sweep to sky. Exhaling, hands to heart center. And let's go ahead and turn to face the long edge of our mat for sun and moon. We'll add an element of visualization here. Okay, so we're inhaling up and out into our 5-pointed star and exhaling down into moonflowers. Big, strong movements here. Can we embody confidence as we go? Inhaling up, exhaling down. And can we picture the light of the moon here? Bringing the image of a moon into our minds and letting our thoughts rest there. What type of moon do you see? Is it a full moon, a crescent moon, colored or white? Let's hold that image in our mind. We'll flow through a few more. And as we move into sunflowers, inhaling, sweeping up and out into our 5-pointed star, exhaling, gathering our sunflowers at the bottom, hinging forward.
Let's channel the energy of the sun here. Can we feel the warmth of the sun building in us? Can we hold the image of the sun in our minds? What kind of sun comes to mind? All right, inhaling up and out into a 5-pointed star. And then settling into sun pose here. Palms are turned up, arms just about parallel with the mat. Strong sun pose here. Maybe we're warming up our ankles, lifting one heel at a time. Can we be compassionate with ourselves, even if our balance is a little shaky? And just like our bodies may be a little shaky, maybe our meditation minds are a little shaky too. We could be trying both at a time, one together, or no heels at all. All right, reaching up, 5-pointed star, drawing our energy back into heart center. All right, heel toeing in. Let's step towards the top of the mat. Let's work on our chair flow. So I'm actually going to face you, but you can face me or however it makes sense in your space. We probably know our chair flow, don't we? Inhaling up and out. And then exhaling, sitting down and back into our chair. And we have our different arm variations, don't we? So we could be reaching forward, which can actually be quite comfortable to counterbalance the weight of our butts going back. We have our arms reaching forward. And instead of getting lost in the movement, can we stay keenly aware of each moment? Every chair pose is slightly different than the one that came before it. We can do different variations and no judgment on what we choose, trying some variety. Okay, we'll do one more. Let's meet at the bottom as we so often do. Arms wherever it's comfortable. Let's do the same as we did with our sun and moon. Test out our ankles. Maybe both together. Knowing that as our minds wobble, our bodies might wobble or vice versa. But maybe if we can have a still mind, we can have a still body. So let's say to ourselves positive thoughts. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. And we know that break is coming, don't we? Let's go ahead and release. We can shake hands. And let's bring in something we don't normally do. We've been doing typical things. Let's try something different. Give ourselves a fresh perspective. Still sitting down and back into chair. If it's comfortable, we can reach the arms forward. Otherwise, maybe keeping them bent, however it is comfortable. We don't often look behind ourselves, do we? So let's follow our hand as we reach behind, right or left. And then come back through center. Other side. Reaching behind, right or left. Yes, we could be doing this in a chair, or if the legs are getting tired, we could be doing it from standing. But we're giving ourselves a fresh perspective, the opportunity to do something we've maybe never done before, and seeing if we can greet it with open awareness, curiosity, non-judgmental, non-competitive, letting go of expectations, staying present. All right, let's go once more each way. Beautiful. We'll come back through center. And again, feel good to shake it off. Sun salutations. Here we go. So sun salutations are often recommended as a moving meditation because it's very repetitive, right? We could use it to tune out, or we can use it to tune in. The same way that you repeated a mantra for, what was it, 5 minutes? We could do our sun salutation for 5 minutes, and we can use that to tune into breath, body, and mind. This is the most physically demanding part of our class though, isn't it, right? So take it easy if we need to. Take a break if we need to. As long as we are in union, mind, breath, and body, we're in good shape. And that might be hanging out in child's pose for quite some time. So if we're not already there, let's come to the top of the mat. I will give us very little instruction so that our minds can follow our practice. Here we go. Inhaling, arms sweeping overhead, tapping our palms. Exhaling, we are swan diving forward, keeping a pretty generous bend in our knees to make it more comfortable usually. We're stepping back with the right foot, option to drop the knee or keep it lifted or lunge. Any variation of lunge we know and love. Taking hands to frame our front foot, we're stepping back for child's pose or downward facing dog, choosing to rest or flow through our half series. Inhaling forward, exhaling through push-up or kneeling push-up, and then inhaling up to cobra or upward facing dog. Pressing back to down dog or child's. And then we're stepping our right foot between our hands for lunge on the opposite side. We could have our knee up or down, but let's lengthen out our spine, make sure we're breathing. Taking hands to frame our front foot, stepping forward into forward fold. Reversing our swan dive, we're inhaling, arms up and overhead. And then exhaling down into chair. That is our basic sun salutation. Let's keep going. Inhaling, swooping overhead. Exhaling, swan diving towards the floor. This time the left foot goes back. Lunge or kneeling lunge. Choosing a comfortable arm variation. Downward dog or child's pose. Plank or kneeling plank. Crocodile or kneeling crocodile. Upward dog or cobra. Downward dog or child's pose. Left foot coming through for a lunge or kneeling lunge. Forward fold. Reversing our swan dive and taking a seat into chair. That is our basic sun salutation. I will keep going. I will say very little. Please let your body be your guide. Here we go. Inhale, circle sweep arms to sky. And we're off. We're on the right foot to start. Choosing a comfortable variation, or maybe beneficial if not comfortable. We always have that option to rest or flow. And can we match one breath to every movement? That may mean really slowing the practice down or slowing the breath down. So we are traditionally supposed to match one breath to movement all through our sun salutation. So that means inhaling as we're stepping forward and lifting up into lunge. Exhaling as we're stepping in. Inhaling through our swan dive, exhaling through our chair. I'm going to take a look at you to see how you're doing. Keep going. Yeah, exactly. Long, strong lines. Beautiful. And maybe we choose an affirmation while we go. So every time we are inhaling, we're thinking to ourselves, strength. And every time we're exhaling, we're thinking to ourselves, softness. we're keeping our thoughts positive and encouraging too, aren't we? So if we're pausing and holding child's pose, that's a beautiful choice. If we're choosing more active options, that's also a beautiful choice. And if today we can't practice in exactly the way we want to practice, honoring our bodies and still being here is a beautiful choice. And if we're listening to our bodies and want to add different variations, we could do that. So I'm not judging. If you want to do something different, go ahead. Let's start to finish up whatever you are working on. So maybe one round, or this is our last round. And then when we finish, we'll meet in mountain pose. So no need to be the first or the last, but know that when you get to mountain pose, you are done. And see what it feels like to be waiting. And if you're the last, that's okay. Noticing what it feels like for others to be waiting on us. We're not actually really waiting, are we? We're just being here, experiencing the moment. And we can take hands over heart or hands to heart center. Once more, tuning into our internal drum beat. Can we feel our hearts beating? Let's see if we can notice all the qualities of our heartbeat at this moment. And let's turn our attention towards the breath, noticing qualities of breath at this moment. Probably noticing a different hum of energy internally as our body responds to our sun salutations. Alrighty, let's release our hands and we'll keep moving, but we'll do more of a recovery exercise. So let's take our feet hip width apart. We might like to rock and roll through our feet to reset. Noticing how it feels for all points of our feet to make contact with the mat. So we feel our pinky toe, big toe, all the toes in between. And we feel our arches are lifting and our heels are planting. And then let's let all parts of our feet plant into the mat evenly, drawing energy up through our inner thighs. We'll go for a lateral flexion here. So we can take right hand to hip. Opposite arm reaches up, and as we did when we were seated, inhaling, lengthening one side of the body. And so bringing back through center, alternating side to side. And again, let's try something novel that we probably don't normally try. Option for cow face arms here. Can we, instead of a straight arm, bend the arm in behind the head, and the opposite arm can reach towards it. So we are flowing through. I like to call this pinwheel. You could call it whatever you like, but we're flowing through one way and the other. Inhaling as our hands meet, and exhaling as we come through to the other side. Inhaling as our hands meet, exhaling as we come to the other side. Notice how we respond to this novelty. So does our liking mind step in and we think, ooh, I like this? Or maybe our disliking mind says, what the heck is this? Can't wait for it to be done. Can we stay present with this no matter what kind of thoughts we're having? We may be judging our bodies for our range of motion, seeing if we can recognize that thought and then just let it pass, replacing it with a more beneficial thought like, I am increasing my range of motion as I breathe. All right, we'll go once more each way, and then we're ready to release. And bring it back through to mountain. Perfect. Let's do one more that I like to give us as an opportunity. Sometimes sun salutations aren't in our practice from day to day. If you've never done Flight of the Bird, we'll do it now. Often we do it in level 1, level 5, but it's a great alternative. If you haven't seen it before, here we go. If you have seen it before, please practice as you wish. All right, so I will give us suggestions as we go. Flight of the Bird. We'll start with hands at heart center, long, tall spine. Doesn't matter which foot we take back. Essentially, we're doing an alternating lunge. So I'll start with my right foot back for a short stance warrior 1. Inhale. Exhaling, we are stepping forward and switching sides. The left foot comes back. Inhale. Exhaling, we're switching sides. So you can see how this gets to be a nice flow. Matching breath to movement, working on a theme. We've done this a million times before, but guess what? That's what yoga is, isn't it? It's the same thing over and over again, but we approach it with a fresh mind. What do they say? You can never step in the same river twice. That's what we're doing with our practice. Okay, we can add our arms, cactus arms here. Inhaling to open, exhaling to close. We may like to do a much larger warrior 1 step. We may be holding a giant beach ball overhead and lifting our hearts for a gentle thoracic back bend. So a little bit of a lift without really overdoing it. Or we may prefer like more of a lunge variation like our boot camp classes. So the back heel is lifted. We can even do arms straight overhead if that's comfortable. So this one actually feels kind of a lot like, what do we call it? Interval training. We'd do like an alternating lunge or a jump lunge. Maybe we'd have weights. And it's that intensity and fire building over time. That's what we're going for. So we're going to stay with that fire. We got our 3rd chakra energy, our tapas, our power to go the distance. So let's keep going. Flight of the Bird. Practicing in our own way. And I had a teacher once tell me it is the mark of an advanced practitioner to know when to rest. It is the mark of an advanced practitioner to know how to modify. So we often say listening to our bodies, but what does that really mean? We're learning the language of our bodies and learning how to respond, aren't we? Can we also add the element of personal expression here? Can we add our own personal style as we go? Can we add some creative license to this? Maybe doing it a different way that you like to do. I don't know what that means, but imagine you are 7 years old and someone has told you do this, but then like a beautiful painting, paint it for yourself. Can we have some free movement? How does that feel to be free and have very unclear instructions? And we'll go just once more on each side. Coming back through to mountain. And as we gather our energy at the top of our mats, let's do some Tai Chi inspired movement. So we'll keep breathing to keep our minds focused on our breath. Let's move our hands. Inhaling, drawing hands up. And exhaling, we're pressing the energy back down. Inhaling, we are lifting. And exhaling, we are pressing. So inside our own minds, we could be saying inhale, exhale, or maybe we're saying light and heavy. Knowing that yoga is a practice of opposites, we can have those qualities in our breath too. What would it feel like to have a light breath and a heavy breath? And one more up and down, and then we'll bring hands to heart center. Beautiful. Let's step our feet wide. And let's get some energy in our palms. So we often talk about dynamic tension. And we'll keep this energy in our hands. And actually, sorry, force of habit. I'm so accustomed to stepping out yoga fit style. We're going to go for a Tai Chi stance, a little bit narrower. You can, I have seen this done with like a wide fitness stance, but usually we start from more of a Tai Chi stance. So not our hip width, just sort of a natural step out. And if we want more of a workout, then out into our yoga fit wide squat sun and moon style. Okay, we'll spread our fingers wide and let's spread the energy side to side. So I've been told some different things as we go through. Imagine that our fingertips are going through clouds and we are gently touching the clouds, parting the clouds with our fingers as we go. Making sure we're breathing still as we're moving. Some people like to take it really wide or get much lower. Like I said, we could have more of that fitness stance. That was first how I learned this. Or we might have more of a gentle kind of nurturing movement side to side. Inviting that slow softness into our breath and bodies. And with our feet still wide, we'll add rotation to this movement. So Tai Chi inspired, not too strictly Tai Chi. We're going to inhale our arms roughly out to T. And then we're going to rotate. And somebody told me to throw a bowling ball as we go. That's what my teacher said. So we're going to inhale through and then exhale, throwing a bowling ball. So we'll start slowly. Maybe feeling like we're moving through a water or a fog. Pivoting our feet so our knees stay comfortable. Some of us might like more of a knee bend. Some of us like less of a knee bend. But let's listen to those knees and keep them happy, okay? I'm going to come off my mat. We'll do one more. We'll give it a little aggression. So we'll cactus arms, inhale. And then as we exhale, we're going to shoot the arm forward. So a little bit more strength, and we're gonna imagine that we're throwing a fireball off the palm of our hand. That's our pattern. Inhale up, strong through our backs. We might even like to make a fist, and then exhale, throw that fireball away. Inhale up, and exhale, go. Really pull from the belly with that exhale, drive the hip forward. So again, we're channeling this fiery energy of our third chakra. And if we want to add that element of visualization, what color is your fireball? See that color. We can have a pretty harsh exhale as we go. Now let's go once more each way. And we're going to bring it back through center. Let's gently spread our energy side to side as a point to reset. Some of us might like to do more of a shift with the hips, just as a different way to do it. Pull in some softness in the hips. And again, some of us might feel more comfortable with a knee bend. I tend to be one of those people. And then we're coming back through center. Let's start with hands on hips. We'll turn our toes forward. Inhaling up and out. Let's tap the palms overhead. And then option to swan dive forward for a wide-legged forward fold. We can always stop halfway, right? Honoring our bodies. So if we stop halfway and bend our knees, it might be more comfortable if you're feeling either really bendy, overstretched, or really tight. That knee bend and flat back can be great because our muscles kick in to hold us. And if we are longing for a deeper stretch, we can walk our hands further down our legs. We can take our hands to the mat. Maybe we're giving the head a gentle shake. And no matter where we are, let's come back to this idea of perspective. We are upside down in some way at this moment, aren't we? And in a way, it might give us a fresh visual perspective of the world, seeing things upside down. Or it may change our thoughts, thinking about things differently. And we can nurture a fresh perspective because so often what we need in life is not a different situation, but a fresh perspective. So noticing our bodies, seeing if we can find a place of tension and giving it a fresh perspective. So I am noticing my hands are a little sweaty and I'm not really enjoying that. I'm slipping. So I can think to myself, okay, I'm noticing my hands are sweaty. How can I have a fresh perspective? Well, I can appreciate the fact that I am doing enough physical fitness to work up a sweat. This is my body's way of managing the heat that I've created. That's my fresh perspective. I don't like the sweat, but I can appreciate why it's there. So noticing in your body now, what's going on? And seeing if you can have a fresh perspective. We've been here for a while, so let's actually take our hands to the front of the mat. I was getting a little long-winded. We can step back to child's if you need a break from wide-legged forward fold. And this one still gives us a fresh perspective. Pausing, enjoying that thought for a moment. And once we've gotten our fresh perspective, option to stay here and rest, or of course to flow through some variation of our half series. Remembering we could always just do a plank, right? Or we could just rest. Let's go ahead and come to a standing position. So we know how to get there, walking hands and feet towards one another, reversing our swan dive, taking a moment to reset. And we're still practicing our 3 mountain format, aren't we? We are in our valley, our beautiful valley, our balance pose. Let's do a fun experiment. It's not that fun, but it might be kind of cool. So let's figure out which side is our good side, which side is our not so great side. And let's start with our not so great side. So I did a little wobble on this one. I'm going to start here with my tree pose. And I'm going to hold my tree pose, but instead of practicing kindness and compassion, I'm going to say to myself, tree pose is really hard. I don't like tree pose. I'm not very good at tree pose. I'm bad at balancing. You know, reasonable thoughts that give us some tension. Don't pick the worst thoughts in the world. We don't need to be cruel to ourselves. But these are things that often come up, right? I'm not flexible enough to be a yoga teacher. I'm not good at standing on one foot. My balance is really bad today. I'm so off. See how that affects your tree pose. And then let's do the same thing on the other side. And this should be our good side, shouldn't it? So let's see what's happening here as we tell ourselves we're not very good at tree pose, are we? We're coming back through center. Okay. So that was just a test, right? We're observing non-judgmentally with curiosity. Isn't it interesting that happened? Like a third grade science teacher. Isn't that so interesting? Fascinating. Okay. And let's get rid of that judgment, wipe it off, start fresh. We're going to choose kind, empowering thoughts. Let's start on one side. And let's see if we can cultivate compassion. Even though my first tree pose wasn't the best I've ever done, I know this one can be a little bit better. Maybe we're saying things to ourselves like practicing balance poses is a great way to build strength and prevent falls. We can say things to ourselves like, I have a steady mind, I can have a steady body. So choosing a positive thought that feels helpful and realistic. All right. Choose a moment of success. So if you fall out, reset. We always want to train success. So if you need to reset, and then we practice coming out of the tree. On a positive note, we got our second side. Okay, we saved the best for last, right? No expectation, but it's our good side. We're going to be extra good at it. We know how to be nurturing with our thoughts. Instead of inviting in mindfulness, maybe we're inviting in heartfulness. Thinking, really appreciate my leg. It carries me around all day, doesn't it? If I step down, I'm challenging my balance and I can get back into the tree. Can we still be breathing fluidly? Let's find that moment of success. And then exit with control. Ta-da! Beautiful. All right, there is our tree pose. We are going to take it down to the mat. And let's start. What are we doing? Let's start in a child's pose. I'm just going to adjust my camera a little bit to bring it down a little closer. Yeah, I think that's better. Okay, so let's make our way back into child's. From child's, we're taking a deep breath to feel the back of our bodies expand. And then let's come to a seated position. We'll swing our legs around. And let's open the front of the body. So let's imagine ourselves, even though it's winter, on a beautiful sunny beach. Or if the beach isn't your favorite, maybe you're in a meadow or the top of a mountain. I don't know where you like to be. Let's bring that into our minds, feel it in our bodies, and we'll do what I call sunbathers pose. Sweeping our arms back beside our hips or just behind our hips, lifting heart to sky without putting too much weight on our hands. You can even put a little bend in the elbows, and our fingers can be pointed towards our toes or turned out just a touch. We can point our feet here if that feels better, or flex our feet, but we want to keep our legs and feet engaged, inviting the warmth of the sun into our hearts. Maybe noticing the warmth you've created through the work that we've done. Let's take one more breath into our heart space. And then we're coming back through center when we're ready. And we'll make our way down to lie on our backs. If by chance you feel you're going to get a little chilly, feel free to put socks on or a sweater, whatever you need. Because it can be very distracting. As much as we want to be mindful, it can be very distracting to be cold, can't it? And then you want to pay attention to your meditation, but you're paying attention to being cold. So, all right. What do we call it? Final relaxation, not final discomfort. So go ahead and lie back. I'll lead us through just a couple of poses, and then I'll give us some time to do anything else you feel you're still missing. So from supine, let's release our feet. And it might feel nice to butterfly the knees open and closed to loosen up our hip flexors and inner thighs. Coming into figure 4 or pigeon, let's take ankle across our thigh. Option to leave it here exactly as we are. So this is a great option. It's very passive. We can just let the stretch do its work without us having to do any work. It's a great option. Sometimes we feel like we really have to beat ourselves up. Our muscles are still lengthening, even if we're not drawing in. If, however, we're craving that sensation to get a deeper stretch, of course, we can reach behind our thigh. Maybe we're cradling the baby, taking the edge of the foot to the crook of the elbow, hugging our lower leg. We could release the opposite leg, yogi's choice. Knowing that wherever we are, that is the perfect place to be. What's the Beatles song? There's nowhere you can be if it isn't where you're meant to be. And when we're ready, switching sides. One side might need a little bit longer than the other side. If it's feeling tighter, it feels like you need a bit more pigeon. So we can do our passive pigeon as though we are stargazing, looking up at the night sky, lying here, enjoying our mats. If we want more stretch sensation, of course, we can draw the leg in, but we don't have to. And instead of always aiming to be like an anatomy textbook, letting our bodies tell us the best variation for the pose here at this very moment. Maybe we can isolate our effort just in our hands and upper body and release the tension from everywhere else. So if we're having a lot of effort in our faces, neck,
Can we release that? And then as we feel ready, we can let this leg go. And I'll give us a minute here, again, letting our bodies tell us what comes next. So maybe we're feeling the impulse for a bridge or a twist. I'll let you be the guide. Take a minute or so for yourself here to get out any final poses you think you need. And then we'll finish in supine. All right. I'm going to set myself up to come a little closer to you to read from a script, but you can stay exactly as you are on your mat. Okay. So maybe one final pose, two final poses, and then we'll settle into stillness and I'll guide us through relaxation.
So as we're ready, coming into stillness on our backs, no rush if you're still kind of getting rid of those last final fidgets, and no judgment if you need to fidget. I think there's sort of this spiritual righteousness, like, I don't fidget. Fidgets are information from the body. It's okay. If you need to kind of shake your sillies out or move at any point during this practice, please do. And I'll lead us through a 5 senses meditation. I think this is a great way to keep our minds focused and get in touch with our bodies. And we most often begin with our sense of touch. Noticing all parts of the body that are touching the surface beneath you. So we may notice the back of the hands, back of the arms, the feet, the entire back of the body. Simply letting our awareness rest on all parts of the body that are touching the mat, the floor, whatever it may be. And our thoughts might get pulled away, bringing them back to the body. Noticing the sensation of the air against your skin and your clothing against your skin. And there may be sensation of comfort or discomfort. And we can let our awareness rest on that comfort or discomfort without ever having to do anything about it. We never need to respond to things that come up in our awareness. And moving our awareness away from our sense of touch and onto our sense of sound or hearing. Noticing all sounds nearby. Seeing if we can stretch our ears to reach for the sounds that are farthest from you. Sounds outside, far, far away, picking up if there are any. And there may be images that come to mind with the sound. Maybe picturing what's going on in your neighborhood. And then let's bring our sense of hearing closer to the building you're in, the room you're in, or noticing any sounds that are coming from you or from me or anything else nearby. Simply letting the sound wash over you. And again, we may have associated feelings, thoughts, or images in our minds. Noticing what that's like. Moving our awareness onto our sense of smell. Seeing if there are any smells nearby that greet your nostrils. Moving our awareness to sense of taste. Is there a taste inside the mouth? Or maybe recalling the taste of the last thing that you ate. And with the eyes closed, turning our attention to our sense of sight, noticing the colors behind our closed eyelids. And as much as we're aware of thoughts in the mind, can we be aware of images passing through our minds? And beyond our five senses, let's tune into our interoception. Can we be aware of what's going on inside our bodies, the hum of energy inside our bodies, feelings of digestion, hunger, thirst? Might be interesting to note that you weren't aware of any of these things until I mentioned them. The beating of your heart, the movement of your breath. We'll practice a tense and release here. It's a form of guided relaxation, and sometimes it's called progressive relaxation. Some participants find the tensing phase with the muscles to not be of benefit. So please know that everything is always optional. And for you, you may prefer to focus on the relaxation piece instead of the tensing piece. So I will leave that option to you. So we'll go through various parts of the body. We'll tense and then release. Tense and then release. Focusing more on the release, obviously, keeps a little heat in the body as we go, which is an added benefit. But feel free to just focus on the release and ignore the tensing if you find that is problematic. So let's actually start from the top of our head. Let's notice our faces. We can, like we just bit into a lemon, tense up all the muscles of the face. Take a breath in. And we may like to hold for an entire round of breath. And on our next exhale, release that tension, imagining it melting away. And we can do the same thing with the muscles of the jaw. Tensing the jaw, maybe a familiar position for you, maybe not. See if we can do a deep inhale, even with the jaw tense. And then exhaling, allowing that to release, maybe opening and closing the jaw and the mouth. And next, bringing awareness to our neck and shoulders. Let's draw the shoulders up by the ears, squeeze, 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 squeeze. Take a breath or two in. And when we feel ready, releasing on the exhale. Let's bring our awareness down our arms, making tight fists, squeezing the biceps, tensing the shoulders. Seeing if we can breathe evenly despite tensing the arms. Using our exhale to release the contraction and invite our muscles to melt. It may be helpful to bring an image into our minds, butter melting, snow melting, and invite that feeling inward. Bringing awareness to chest and belly, tensing our pecs and our abs. This will probably restrict our breathing, and we're simply noticing that. There may be an emotional reaction to tensing chest and belly, simply noticing. And then we can release and take a deep 3-part breath to allow that tension to fade. And now squeezing the large, strong back muscles that we sometimes forget about during the day as we sit slumped in our chairs in front of Zoom. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze these back muscles. Maybe noticing that that also restricts the breath or makes the breath more open in the front. And as we release on an inhale, noticing the spaciousness that follows. Again, taking a deep 3-part breath. Moving awareness down to the pelvis, creating tension in the hips and glutes. So we can squeeze our bums, make sure we're still breathing. And on one of our following exhales, let it go. Take a deep breath in, imagining the breath can drop right down into the pelvis. Moving down to the powerful muscles of our thighs. Feeling strength as we hold tension in our thigh muscles. This might move down to our calves as well and into our feet. Really squeezing the lower body. Often we have associations with various body parts, stories that come up in our minds, right? I've got a bad knee, that kind of thing. Let's see if we can wipe that from our minds and experience our body only in this present moment without any baggage of anything that has ever happened to us. And as we release the lower body, Scanning the body, moving our awareness around the entire body. And if there are any areas of lingering tension, tightness, feeling stiff, or craving movement, we can go back to those parts, tense, release, moving in time with our own breath and needs. So going in our own way now, maybe simply just encouraging relaxation throughout the whole body, if that works for you. Otherwise, continuing to move, tensing and releasing around the body. And our thoughts may travel into the future, thinking about what's coming up next, or into the past, remembering what's already happened. And we can gently but firmly guide them back to the present moment, noticing this moment, only this moment, and each moment as it comes. This one, and the next, and the next. To encourage letting go throughout the entire body, breathing slowly and deeply. Feeling supported by the earth below, reminding ourselves that our only job right now is to breathe. And for today, let's finish together in a seated position. So we can take a couple deep breaths, bringing our awareness back into the waking world. And over the next minute or so, we'll meet in a seated position. No rush to be the first. Doesn't matter if you're the last, but we will meet together. Long, tall spine. We can bring hands across our heart or hands to heart center. Feeling our shared energy in this moment. Through the power of the internet, across time zones, countries, and places, we are all here together today. And I thank you for coming with a shared interest and a shared desire. And thank you for joining me for our formal practice. From my light to yours, namaste.